And so God puts Adam into a deep sleep and removes a rib, performs surgery on Adam, takes out a rib, and he fashions the woman out of the genetic material, if you like, that was Adam's. And he creates Eve. Now the word woman means out of man. Right? So the woman came out of man, and man has been coming out of woman ever since. That's just true, right? That's just biology. But initially, the woman came out of the man. Just as the Adam came from the Adamah, the ground. The Adam came out of the Adamah, the ground from which he was made. Right. So now we have the man and the woman, both made in the image and likeness of God. And we've talked at length about that, haven't we? We've mentioned this before, that the man and the woman are both made in the image and likeness of God, which implies that both have equal value, dignity, and worth in the eyes of God. What's more, when Adam was created and God breathed into him the Ruach Elohim, and the man became a living soul, the first thing that Adam saw was God, which tells us, teaches us, implies that man's first relationship is to his God. The primary relationship for which Adam was made was with his God. When Eve is created, where is Adam? Sleeping. When Eve wakes up for the very first time, who is the first person that Eve meets? God. What does this tell us? That Eve's primary relationship, the primary relationship for which the woman was created, is with her God, not with her husband. That is the secondary relationship. And it's got to go in that order. The woman doesn't need the man in order to have a relationship with God. She was designed for that very purpose. Is that clear? Equal value, dignity, worth. Male and female. Not one above another in terms of value, dignity, and worth. Both have equal access to God, and the primary relationship for which both males and females have been made is for a relationship with God first and then with each other. But let's make no mistake, the woman was meant to be the helper to the man. Not the other way around. The woman is to be the helper to the man. Not the other way around. That is the very design order that God has instilled into his creation. You see, Adam was given a very specific role. What is Adam? He is dirt of the ground, clay, molded, shaped, sculpted into a human being, and then infused with the Ruach Elohim, with the breath of God. So Adam is a composite being, if you like. He's a composite of the created order and God's Spirit. As a composite being, God gives Adam, the race of man, and the specific man, Adam himself, dominion over all that has been made. And so Adam, as a composite being, represents the creation, the created order before God. Do you see that? He stands as the one who has dominion over it, who's responsible for it. He stands as one who represents it in that he has come from it, but he is also from God. And so he stands in between God and his creation as something of both worlds, if you like. Adam represents all of creation before God, and conversely, Adam represents God to his creation. Adam stands between God and the created order as the one who represents God to all of creation. That is why I continually say that we are made for three primary relationships: a relationship to God, to each other, and to all creation. And so Adam has rule. Adam has authority. It's been granted to the race of man to have rule and authority, but it's been granted specifically to the singular man, Adam, to represent God to his creation and creation to their God. It's a very big responsibility. And it's one that Adam fails in. It's one that Adam fails in. He fails in his responsibility. Think about the temptation narrative in Genesis chapter 3, when the serpent tempts Eve to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Where is Adam? The snake says, did God say? Eve said, well, kind of. Actually, God said nothing to Eve at all in that sense. It was to Adam that the command was given. And presumably, Adam spoke to Eve about it. Hey, God says, FYI. So where was Adam when this was happening? Well, when it says that Adam and Eve ate from the tree, it says that Eve ate. Eve took and ate and gave also to her husband who was with her. Now, whether he was a late-comer Johnny at the party or whether he was there the whole time, don't know, doesn't tell us. But one way or another, he knew what was going on. And he failed in his responsibility to defend his wife. He failed in his responsibility to exert his rule, his dominion, his authority in that relationship as the husband. To step in between her and the temptation and say, snake, shut it. Eve, we're out of here. That was his job. That's what he should have done. And he didn't. He abdicated his responsibility as the man to lead his house, to lead his home. He abdicated it. What is the outworking of his abdication? Adam was given rule. He was given authority. He was the representative of all creation to God, and he's representative of God to all creation. He is responsible for it and for what happens to it. So when Adam sins, the creation breaks. Why? Because he's responsible. He's responsible for all of creation. He sins, the whole darn thing breaks. Paul reminds us of these very facts in the letter to Timothy, where he says, it was not Adam that was deceived, it was Eve. Eve was deceived first, and Adam transgressed. And there are so many that would say today, typical misogynistic scripture, blaming the woman. The misogynistic scripture. Evil men. The patriarchy. In all of scripture, Eve is never blamed. Not even there. The responsibility lands squarely on the shoulders of Adam, not on Eve. Why? Because she was not the one in the position of authority. The buck stops with him, not her. In all of Scripture, it's consistent. The blame lands with Adam and not Eve. Even though it confesses that she was the first to sin, she was the one that was tempted. It's Adam who was at fault. He should have known better. And he should have done something to save his wife. He should have taken up his responsibility to defend his woman. And he didn't. That was his job, that was his role, and he abdicated that responsibility. She is not held accountable for it. Adam is held accountable for her actions and for the actions that he undertook after her. It's so important that we don't get caught up in this kind of language and rhetoric that we hear from the world, because it will blind us to what the Scripture is telling us, and it will distort our understanding of the very gospel of Jesus Christ if we don't get this right. It is not the woman who is held responsible. The responsibility lands squarely on the shoulders of the man. Why? Because he was the one in a position of authority. That's why. And nothing has changed. Right throughout Scripture, Old and New Testaments, it affirms that the man is to lead. The man is to be the one in authority in his home and in the church. That is writ large across all of Scripture. And I know that there are some who would teach otherwise, but they make a very big mistake in doing so, because they are denying the very creation order and the mandate and responsibility with which the Scripture puts on the man. And what's more, furthermore, it also denies the very outworking of that denial in our culture. One of the greatest problems, one of the greatest threats, one of the greatest social diseases our culture suffers from is the abdication of man to take his responsibility for his family. It's writ large everywhere you look. Where are the men? At the pub. Taking drugs. Running off with 20 other women. Sitting in their basements playing on the video games. Abdicating their responsibility to lead. It's one of the great social diseases of our time. The abdication of man from his responsibility to lead, and the usurping of that authority by women. Now, to some degree, you've got to say, well, if there's a nature abhors a vacuum. If there's a vacuum of leadership, someone's got to do it. And if they're not going to, well, we have to. And I get that and I agree. But it is not the way that God intended his creation to operate. Do you think it is a coincidence that God, the second person of the Trinity, entered into human history as a man? Do you think that's a coincidence? Oh, it's just because he lived in a patriarchal society and they wouldn't have accepted a woman? No, it's because of the very creation mandate and order, the design with which God created, because the authority was given to man. A woman could not save creation. A woman could not have saved creation because it was not her responsibility to save. It was not her responsibility for its breaking, and it's not her responsibility for its saving. That responsibility lies on the shoulders of a man. And so God entering into human history in the form and fullness of the human being we know as Jesus of Nazareth, as a male of the species, is a direct design principle and is necessary for the salvation of every one of us.